As a researcher, it's easy to feel overwhelmed by the weight of qualitative data. Between interviews, articles, and notes, finding patterns seems impossible, and insights can be elusive. There's a smarter, better way to perform qualitative research and analysis. Meet NVivo with Lumivero's AI Assistant. NVivo improves your research flow, boosts productivity, and reduces manual work. With decades of expertise, NVivo provides powerful, intuitive qualitative data research software, all while safeguarding your data. Do more with NVivo. Your research team just grew by one.
So since we have a mix of people that have used NVivo and some who have not, I just want to go over the interface and take you on a little tour. So I'm in NVivo 15. This is the beta. And with NVivo, you have a blue navigation panel. And so it's broken up into 3 parts. So you have the import section, which helps you organize or import all your different data that you're going to use for your project. So for this project, this is the sample project that comes with NVivo. And this was real data conducted at Duke University. They were looking at environmental changes in coastal communities in North Carolina. So that's the type of data you'll be seeing. So I've already, or in this project, they've already imported, here they have images they've imported. They've imported interviews, news articles. We have our reference articles from our lit review from importing a Satavi project into NVivo, social media, and survey data. Now, to import into NVivo, it's very easy. You just go to the import tab. This is one way, and you can import your files, your surveys with either Excel sheet or Qualtrics or SurveyMonkey. You can import your Satavi project from here, other bibliographical software, and then notes or emails too. And then the next section is all about organizing your coding. So you can see they've already started their coding here. They have broad codes and then subcodes underneath it. So the hierarchy. You can also organize your participants. So under cases, cases are basically your units of analysis. So who or what are you studying? So in this case, they interviewed people in different communities. You can add all the content you have for a participant into this case. So, we interviewed Barbara twice, so we have both interviews here, for example. And then case classifications are a way for you to assign attributes to your cases or demographic information. So I can add, age group, educational level, what community Barbara's from. And this becomes important when I show you some queries later, because now I can look across all my coding to see, what did a certain age group say or have information in this code in regards to a topic or category. So this is one of the most powerful things with using NVivo. And then you also have under organize your memos, which help you reflect on your research process or your coding. And then the third section here is all about exploring your data. So your queries, and we also have some visuals with maps and charts here. So I'll be showing all of you this. Okay, so first I'm going to start by talking about how you can use NVivo for a lit review. So if you're using reference management software like Satavi, like in this case, I imported my Satavi project into NVivo. It's integrated with NVivo. So I have all my articles that I used. It'll bring in the tagging I did in Satavi and also an outline I created in Satavi to help me get started with writing my lit review. In this case, I'm going to show you how the AI assistant can help with your articles. So I know when I used NVivo for my lit review, I brought in my articles, I opened up a memo, and I summarized that article. What was important to add to the lit review from that article. This took me a lot of time, as you all know. But with AI Assistant, I'm just going go to a couple of PDFs here. So I can get to AI Assistant either from the home page, so it's right here, or I can right click on the documents I want, in this case, to use the AI Assistant to summarize documents. So you can see the documents are listed here. I can summarize either a short summary, a standard one, or a long one. And I'll ask NVivo to generate this. So this was a 141 page PDF article. You can see it's summarized here nicely. I like the way this looks. It looks very helpful. And I can decide if I want to add it as a memo or skip it. So I'm going to add it. And then for the next one, this was based on a meeting. Now I'm not going to add this to a memo, so I'm going to skip it. I will add this one. And then when I go to memos, you can see I actually have a folder called AI Summary. So it keeps anything the AI did separate from my other memos. So when I open up this memo, I can see what I actually typed into the memo. So I had already created a memo. So this is what I had added. And then it's showing me quite clearly that the AI did this summary here. Now I can always edit this, so I can add to this memo. I always like to insert a date timestamp here, so I keep track of my thoughts. I can type what I would like. So, this is an article I'll definitely use for my lit review and so on. Now, another way the AI assistant can help me is if I go back into my references, I'll open up that same article. So a lot of times you might be reading through an article and there's some vocabulary or technical terms, you're just not sure about. So for example, they're talking about biosecurity. Now I can guess what that is, but I'm not sure. So I'm going to ask the AI assistant to help me here to summarize the text. So I'll generate. And it gives me a nice definition. Biosecurity refers to measures taken to protect against the spread of harmful organisms to humans, etc. All right, that's great. So click OK. And now I can always get back to that definition. So it's highlighted blue, which means it's an annotation in NVivo. So I can go and view annotations and read this. But this could also be helpful for my research team, because they'll see it's an annotation and they can go and read the definition also. All right. So now I want to move to working with interviews. So you can see here, they've imported a bunch of interviews. And because we have people that are new to NVivo or haven't used NVivo before, I just want to show how you can code in an interview. So I've opened up Barbara's interview here. And I can start reading through it and deciding, parts that I want to, and I want to go to codes here, parts that I want to code. Here, I'm just going to get rid of code and stripes for a second. So she's talking about landscape here. So that's interesting to me with the environment. So I'm going to highlight this section, and there's multiple ways to code in NVivo, but one easy way is just to drag and drop and bring it over to the code section. And then I can give it a name. So I'm just going to give it a name, landscape. I could give the code a description, which really helps when you want to create a code book, especially if you're working with a team. And you can see it's listed here. So I'll just open it up. And so that's what I coded. I can always get back to the original source. So if I click on this link, it'll take me back to Barbara's interview, and I can see this is the section that I coded. Now, another thing I can do with the AI, let's say I'm curious, I want to summarize just this question. I just want to get a sense of, how Barbara answered this question on community environmental change. So I'm just going to highlight this part of the interview and then ask the AI assistant to summarize the text. So it's just this text it's summarizing, and I'll generate. So it gives me a summary of what Barbara said with answering this question. So Barbara discusses significant changes in the area, particularly the decline of commercial fishing due to environmental issues like water quality and overharvesting, etc. All right, so that's helpful. So now it becomes an annotation, and I can view it here. So again, I can review it anytime, or my team members could review this summary too. Now, I can continue coding in Barbara's interview and go through interviews, one at a time coding, but I wanted to show you some of the queries I tend to use when I'm collecting data. So a lot of times I'll use some queries even before I do too much coding. I just want to see what's in my data. So in this case, I'll go to word frequency query, and I'm going to ask the software to look up the 100 most frequently used words just in my interview. So I'm going to just pick my interview folder there. Now I could ask it to do synonyms and STEM words, but I'm just going to stick with exact matches, and I'll run the query. So it's showing me the 100 most frequently used words just in my interviews. And I could even add a word to a stop word list if I wanted to, if I didn't want that in this list. And we have some visuals too that I find helpful. So I'm going to ask NVivo to create a word cloud. So with the word cloud, the larger the word, the more often it's going to be used in the interviews. So you'll see that pop up in a second. So I'm looking at the words. I see water. That's intriguing because it's coastal communities, environmental change. So I'm curious, what are they saying about water? So I can click right on the word and run a text search query from here. So all these interviews mention water, but I have another visual that I can look at to help me sort of dig deeper into the data. So the word tree is going to show me the 5 words before and after water. So I can go down here and just see what's standing out. So, one thing that's standing out is water quality. So if I click there, I can see how the words are connected to water and then quality. But I also can even dig a little deeper. So I can ask the software to run a text search from here. So now this is showing me just the 5 words before and after water quality, but that's not enough context for me. So I want NVivo to help me do more context. I'll do broad context, and I'll just run the query again. So at this point, the software has done a lot of work for me. It's found in all those interviews where they mention water quality. So instead of me having to go through each interview and find that phrase, I used basically a text search to do that. So now I can save these results as a code. So I'm just going to put it in the code folder and call it water quality, and give it a description too if I want to use it for my code book, and click OK. All right, so here's the code water quality, and it's also right here in my codes. Now, so I basically, by using the text search, I did broad coding. So I have a category water quality. So now I want to ask the software to do the sub coding for me. So I'm going to just right click on water quality and go to AI Assistant. And now it will suggest child codes for me. And so I'll ask NVivo to generate that. So this, it's going through this has many references, so it takes a little longer, but not that much time. So you can see here, this is what NVivo is suggesting for subcodes. to water quality. So I have water quality issues. That looks good, but I can, if I want, not include them. So I just have to make sure I click off both sides here if I don't want to include a code. So in this case, I definitely want to include the water quality one, issues, environmental regulations, I want to keep to. Community dynamics, that might be interesting. Maybe the water quality has some issues with community interactions, development impacts, economic challenges, importance to local food security. Okay, these all look pretty interesting to me, so I'm going to keep them. And then I could also at this time ask NVivo to code it to a broad context, so I get like more of a paragraph with the references, not just a few words. So I'll click OK here. And you can see now it's created those subcodes for me. Now I created this, those are my initials, Stacy Penna SP, and then I can see where the AI created these codes. So again, you decide, you have control of what comes into the project, and then you also it's always transparent what AI is doing in the project. All right, so I want to go back and show you some other features when you're also working with interview data or any data really. All right, so I mentioned that the AI can help you with like local sayings or idioms. So here, I've noticed when I've interviewed people, quite a few people have talked about dingbatters, and I don't know what that means, so I'm curious. So I'm going to, and I sort of need to know to understand what they're talking about. So I'm going to highlight dingbatter and then use the AI assistant to summarize or give me a definition basically of what that is. So dingbatter is a term used in some coastal communities, particularly in North Carolina, to refer to an outsider. So that's great. That's very helpful. And so now it becomes an annotation, and I can view it here. So, and then this is part of my team being able to understand what that means too. Now, I can also, I know a lot of researchers because I've interviewed them for my podcast. A lot of times they might be interviewing somebody and the person might answer starting in English and then maybe switch to Spanish or, different languages. They might go back and forth talking in different languages during the interview. So with the NVivo AI assistant here, you can see here that Thomas started in English and then switched to Spanish. So I can go to the AI assistant, summarize text, and we actually have a bunch of different languages you can translate to here. I'm going to stay with English and generate. So here it's giving me translation. The speaker expresses their love for living in a remote area, appreciating its beauty, and so on. Click OK. And again, that becomes part of the annotations here. So I can always go back and read that, and same with my team members. So I also wanted to show you some queries and the power of using queries. So I'm going to go to the Explore tab, and I'm going to show you how to use a cross-tab query. So this allows me to look across, obviously, my data. And in this case, I'm going pick the codes under water quality and water quality. So this was the code I created, and then these are the AI created codes. And because I have cases and my attributes in NVivo, I can ask the software, I want to see, okay, based on what people said about water quality in those codes, how did different communities refer to that? So it's going to give me a table, and I'm going to switch it to coding references instead of cases. And I like using heat maps. It's easier to see the numbers. So I can see some communities that are talking about water quality. So Harker's Island, Wilston, Betty, and so on, but some aren't. So is that because I haven't interviewed those communities yet, or is it because they weren't interested in that? Again, it's one way to look at your data and see it from different angles. So with anything in NVivo, you can always export it to, in this case, a spreadsheet to put in a report, or you can create a chart of it and export that. So I just wanted to show you a query that I find very helpful. I also want to show some visuals you can use. So a lot of times people are want to use show what they're seeing in their data visually. So there's a few ways to do that. You can go here and go to a mind map. And when you first use a mind map, when you open it the first time, it's like a whiteboard. There's nothing in it, but you can easily add floating ideas. So this team, what they did is they created a structure for their coding to organize their coding here. So they started here, and then you can actually create this image as your code. So it'll actually create the codes for you. It won't code for you, it'll just create the outline for you. You can also, with maps, create a concept map. So you're seeing some patterns in your data. You're sort of getting to a concept idea, and you want to be able to show maybe your team members or your advisor what you're seeing. You can actually bring in, these are codes, project items into this map, and then add what you're seeing, sort of showing the concept that you want to share with other people. And this can be exported to and put into a report. And then another type of map is, I actually did this. What I did is, in this project, we had, let me go to codes to show you. They had created memorable quotes, right? And they had these. So what I did is, they had memorable quotes, and I did the AI assistant, and it gave me categories for these quotes. And then I created this project project map. So what it did is, it's showing me that James, with his quotes, he's talking about environmental concerns or economic changes and land value. Daniel's talking about quirky local traditions and so on. And I can always get to these codes by just double clicking on the actual image, but I can also export this. So again, sometimes it's fun with visuals to see your data in different ways, and to sort of get different angles of what you're seeing and what your data is saying. All right. So I also wanted to mention some of the modules we have in NVivo. So we have NVivo transcription, which can auto transcribe your audio or video. So I have an example of that here. So for Helen's audio file, so with NVivo transcription, it's actually a web app. So it's a separate product, but it integrates with NVivo. So if you import your audio and video into NVivo, you can actually go to transcribe here, and you can add your file. So I already added Helen, you can see here, and it's already been transcribed. But the transcription takes about half the time of the audio file. So if you have a 60-minute audio file, it'll take about 30 minutes or less to transcribe. I use this all the time with my podcast interviews, and it's very quick. So once it does the transcription, it's going to ask you, do you want to edit it? And so if I go here to NVivo transcription, what will happen is, let's show you what it looks like. This is the web app. I can go right to the transcript, and I've already done this, but I can add the speakers. I can listen and follow along, and maybe I want to edit parts of it or add to it, and then I could export it to a Word document or text. But if I've done all this in NVivo, it will actually come in to NVivo, and it looks like this. So I have the timestamp, the content, so the transcript, and then the speakers here. And then, I can easily start coding right on it. I can follow along here. You can listen to it. So I could actually code both the audio if I wanted to. So I'll just do that for fun. So I can take parts of the audio. I have this little blue box there, and I'll put that in the landscape, which I just did, and I'll code the text here. And when I open up this code, you'll see in the tabs here, I have the reference tab, which shows me all the different types of sources I coded. And then the audio will show just the audio, and I'll play back actually just that part. Now, if I had multiple audio sections, they would show up here too. So I just wanted to show you NVivo a little bit about NVivo transcription. And then the other module is Collaboration Cloud. So we had a few people say some of their challenges was working with a team. So Collaboration Cloud, we have two products. One's Collaboration Cloud, which is in the cloud, and then Collaboration Server, which is a dedicated server that you have at your organization. But they do the same thing, but everyone can work in the same project. So some ways you can work together as a team that NVivo can help you with is I'll just open up Barbara's interview again. So I can use coding stripes. Oh, no, didn't want that one. I want selected items. And here I want to go to users. So everyone in bold, that means that they've coded in this interview. So those are my team members, but you can also be able to see the AI coding too. And here I can click on the coding stripes, and it's showing me, it's showing me the codes here. Sorry. I have to get to none, and I have to redo that to show you. Select items. But that did show you can also see each code that was coded in the interview too. And users, and let's pick the same again. So you can see by the initial. So these are my initials. So if I click on that, it's going to show me everything I coded in this interview. It'll show me everything that EDR coded. So it shows by initials. And then with AI, it would show the AI coding also. So that's one way if you're a team to help look across what people have done for coding. But we also have a query called a coding comparison query, and I have an example of that here. So the coding comparison query will show you the kappa coefficient, the agreement and disagreement with the coding. So it will help you with your inter-rater reliability. My understanding with kappa is that the closer it is to 1, the more agreement you have with your coders. So I'll just go to one that has less agreement. And you can see here how the different researchers coded. So WWS coded this section, HGP coded this section, and EDR coded this. So NVivo calculates the kappa by the number of characters you code. So a lot of times I recommend to teams that you decide before you code, you're going to code to end of sentences or end of paragraphs, just so that you can make sure you get that alignment that you want to see with the inter-rater reliability.